Julian, shifting back over towards you, I thought to ask more of a business question as an architect and thinking about enterprise architecture. Wondered how you, as an architect, interact and influence business outcomes with customers.
That's a really complex one. Architecture and business concerns. I'm thinking of an analogy. It's almost like the archetypal tale of great adversaries that become best of friends. I think when a new feature is being worked on, the heralding great architecture can be somewhat at odds with the pressing needs of the business, especially if you're thinking something like, even in enterprises, a lot of new initiatives are somewhat greenfield. They have to show results. They have to make traction while they're still in favor and people are still watching the outcomes of putting the investment in. And at those points, I feel like in some ways the prevalence of agile is a little bit of a step towards recognizing relaxing some of the architecture in favor of, let's see, return on investment, let's see a minimum viable product. And I think there's been a lot of validity to that. I feel like that's really brought software engineering and the business closer than it's ever been in some ways. But as the tale goes on, as these adversaries get to know one another, the challenges caused by flimsy architecture really start to present themselves in ways that speak to everyone. Suddenly, that shortcut to do with performance means that a new, very compelling user interface that's wanted meets objections, and there's a whole lot of infrastructure work to get there that needs some explaining. Even sloppily crafted REST interfaces mean, well, okay, we can't consume the data in the way that you'd now like to do. We're kind of stuck with this model we may have chosen wrongly firstly before we knew all of our use cases. So as things progress, as time moves on, the architecture definitely becomes the friend of the business. It becomes the thing that allows movement, allows agility in terms of new experiences and new capabilities. At a more sort of implementational level, I think that keeping the business in mind of architecture is something there've been a lot of moves towards at different levels across the years. Object orientation is such an old term now. We kind of take it for granted a lot of the time, but that was very very pivotal in getting people to think about business domain objects and how we want to use those. And it's far from universal that code bases do that well. You see it meticulous in some, and in others, you almost get a clue when the nouns involved are rather flimsy and people don't quite know what they're describing. And the impact of that can be very subtle, nuanced over the years. It can be the difference between a team plugging things away into a calculator that seem to have nothing to do with that calculator versus a team playing with concepts that can stand up in any business requirement discussion and actually formulate objections and opportunities that the business won't have thought of because they're so ingrained in how things work by then. I think in more recent times, we've been talking about the cloud. Domain-driven design has been a higher level look at that, kind of taking some of that encapsulation and extraction of ideas into the messaging domain, into the way we think of REST interfaces. I don't know that everyone gets to put in the time for domain-driven design in that way. It seems a little bit on the fringe for a lot of enterprise apps to really get that level of fidelity in. And I feel like we've lived with object-oriented code for so long. We've all seen the benefits, the outcomes, the challenges. I feel like it's going to take time for when microservice architectures really start to be the tech debt of tomorrow. I feel like that's when we're going to see who's achieved what in terms of that domain modeling. I think that the pains come later.
Pretty good insight, so thank you.